Hi, welcome to Earth Treasures from the Granite State. My name is Stephen Hermans with the Capital Mineral Club. I am the president. This is my guest, Paul Bedard from Pawjer Earth Products. Let me tell you a little bit about our mineral club. We are based in Concord, New Hampshire, and we have our meetings at the Salvation Army building at the corner of Clinton and Fruit Streets on the first Saturday of every month except the summer months, and that's at 2 p.m. Guests as well as members are welcome. We have approximately 110 members currently, of which probably an average of 40 members show up to every meeting every month. Our monthly meetings consist mainly of a speaker that we get every month, and they speak on different subjects concerning geology, mineralogy, caving, a lot of different items, so it's very diverse every month. Our members really enjoy this. Some of the other things our club does is we provide scholarships to needy students that take geology programs. We also help out local schools in their needs and wants for possible geology-related or mineralogy-related items that they may need or require. The other things that we do, we provide field trips for our members, which can be anywhere locally in the state. Sometimes we go out of state to various other places, such as mines or museums that are related to the subject of geology and mineralogy. We also have a show in the end of August. It's always the last weekend in August. This year will be our 54th annual show, and this is held at the Everett Arena in Concord, New Hampshire. There are many mineral dealers and dealers that deal with jewelry, fossils, magazines, books, tools, pretty much anything that's related to geology, mineralogy, and jewelry and gemstones. We have mineral cutters that actually cut gemstones, and they have presentations that they do for the people. So all in all, it's a great show. Well, Paul, tell me a little bit about yourself and what you do, and how did you get the name Pawjer?
Well, I'm a Goffstown boy, born and bred and raised in the town of Goffstown, and my name Paul Bedard Jr., and I've always had that title since I was a kid. And so when I started my business, my father's company was Paul E. Bedard Construction, and kind of that was taken. So I was always little Paul growing up, and that was always a sore spot. But Pawjer seemed to come into play, and it's a handle that I started when I was 22, and it's been that way ever since. So it's kind of a unique name and certainly a one of a kind, and I go with it. You know.
All right. Why don't you tell me a little bit about what you do?
Well, I started out in construction, digging, and landscaping, site work, and always dealing with the earth and its products and scaping of the land. And over the years and through the careers, I always came up with rocks and always saw it as a possible inventory for doing things. So I'd use them for landscaping, I'd use them for retaining walls, and always look for flat ones for steps and try to incorporate them into retaining walls and features. Back when I was a teenager, I was in the woodworking business. I used to make grade stakes, and I met a man who owned a granite quarry who made granite bounds. And through that relationship we formed over the years, and he nurtured and the passion for granite in me. And through the years, I've always wanted a wire saw. And the way things are these days, you got to have something to bring to the table to be competitive in business. And I always thought that opening up a rock and looking at what's inside it was always interesting. So I put that idea into motion after some time, maybe a decade of thinking about it before I actually pulled the trigger. And then it was every night, every weekend, between jobs for 6 months, nonstop, just designing and building a machine to do just that. Take rocks and saw them into products.
Great. Now, what other types of things do you do
Well,
other than just sawing rocks?
yeah, it opened up a can of worms. After you start sawing rocks, then you want to start doing other things with the rocks, not just lay them flat on the ground. So then I started making mailbox posts, and then I started making light posts, and then I started discovering other issues and other problems that I had to resolve and come around. And so I had to start designing and building other machinery over the time and to accommodate this granite aspect of my trying to make a living. And as I do it and get to meet more and more people who have that passion for stone, other opportunities open up, other sources of material, which was key, because not only do I use boulders, glacial erratics, but I use repurposed products, old foundation blocks, granite bounce, granite stones, everything. I mean, you dig a hole, you pull up a rock, can make a patio. You dig a hole, dig up a rock, make a lamppost. Now I dig a hole, dig up a rock, and I make spheres.
Spheres. That sounds very interesting.
It's
Sounds like a complicated process.
I had no idea. One morning I woke up and I said I wanted to make spheres, and I didn't realize what that was going to put me into. And I had no mentor on this one. I had very little guidance. There was the industry in the lapidary world usually deal with smaller stones, and the mineralogists and the gemology, 4-6 inches in diameter, and you can buy a machine to make those. Well, I was interested in making spheres that were.
So we're talking large spheres here. How large are we talking?
2 foot.
2 foot
So
diameter?
Diameter, 600-700 pounds. That opens up issues that I had to resolve and figure out how to do it. But that's what makes it interesting.
Well, I guess you have a short segment that we'd like to show the folks out there.
Yep.
That
Right.
kind of shows what you do with this stuff.
Yeah,
Why don't we
let's
have
take
a look at
it. Yep.
And then
Sure.
we'll have a little discussion about it.
2016 Concord Minerals Show. Here we are at 376 Elm Street in Goffstown, Pawjer Landscape Construction Company. This is our wire shop facility, excavation equipment and landscape products. And we also start doing wire saw work, where we're sawing glacial erratics. There it is. That's a boulder that we're sawing into flagging and patio stone. That's a big rock we're cutting down. Here we go on a video. That's the wire with water wearing the stone out as the diamonds wear. Diamonds last a little longer than the stone. We're able to make many cuts. Water's a coolant and takes the aggregate away as it travels through the stone. The stone sits on a carriage, propped up so we can make several cuts. This particular stone was sawed for patio flagging. There we have them, 2.5 inches thick on that particular stone. And here we are with benches. Table sat in the center. Here we are setting the sling to pick the table up, take it to a job. Here we are at the Palermo mine, looking to get aggregate products for the wire saw shop. Here we are, that's quartz. We use quartz primarily for tables and spheres. There's a sphere in construction, a cube right now. There it is. In the process, turning it into a octagon. Eventually into a rhombocubic octahedron. And it took me a day and a half to learn how to say that. And there's several days of work to produce those. Here is a layout ready for hand cutting. A lot of work. Take that stone into a rough round ball. Saw work, hammer and chisel, templates, till we're finally deemed a rough round, ready to go on the machine. That's the sphere machine. Those are grinding cups, diamond-centered cups that grind the stone away. Different cups for different dimensions of stones. That's a cast iron cup ready for grinding. We use and that's a polishing pad for polishing. That's a piece of quartzite, hand cut, of course. Grinding away, just got on the machine. That's a rough round ball. Not spherical yet, that's for sure. Got a long way to go to get that one into a sphere. Hard to make them round by hand. No matter how many times you look at it, you only see one half of it at a time. All those cuts, overcuts. Here we go, after it's been on for a while.
Still 3
Closer.
hours grinding
Not
away.
spherical yet, getting closer. You still see the imperfections, the overcuts. Still sitting there, grinding away.
Each gouge
It's
mark
time.
has to be ground away before it's
Wears a
spherical.
lot of diamonds out to get to that. Well, you can see the diamond centers right there, and that's a piece of quartz. Different stone. That one's spherical. Quartz are beautiful. There we are in motion. Here's the machine. That's grinding a machine ground rough round ball. Much easier, much closer to spherical. Grinding away. Rhythmic. Three different grinding cups. No one dominates rotation. Everything just has a mind of its own as it travels on the cups. Grinding. That's spherical. How smooth the water flows off it. Still see that red spot. Got to keep grinding to get rid of that imperfection to make it perfect. Grind away. Quartzite in the pre-polish stage. Here we are in the polish stage. That's the finishing. That's really fine. There's some inventory of stones that have been ground down to spheres, sitting on their own little dolly so we can roll them around and move them on the dolly. See one with the straps on it. That's how we handle them. There's a sling, custom made to handle spheres, on a hook in the yard. You can also see a water feature made out of a sphere in the background. These straps aren't as big as the pumpkin straps, that's for sure. You don't need as many men to move those things. But that sphere right there weighs about 350 pounds. Yep. Yeah, well, we got tired of making them by hand. This is a new machine that we designed. Call it a duplicating lathe. Now we take that three-dimensional octagon, mount it on specially designed cups, turn it, and advance the blade into it. Oh, so much easier. I think we're getting older. Trying to find the easy ways of doing things. After we do it in one direction, we take it off, spin it 90 degrees, and cut it on the second dimension. Still a rough round ball, but still only 2 dimensions. It's not a sphere. You can see how it needs to be cut, and trimmed. But we'll get it. Saw it down, hammer and chisel all those fins off. There's a good view of it right there. Hit and miss, hit and miss. Pretty close. You can see how egg-shaped it is, though. But eventually, we'll be done cutting, chipping, grinding, just to smooth it off. There's the saw at work. You can control the speed of the rotation. Water control. There's a sample of the blade right there with the water spraying on the blade and the stone. There's the finished 2-dimensional rough round ball sitting in the cups. Necessity is the mother of invention. Nothing proves it more than working with stone. Unyielding. You can see the cross line. You can see the template. That's the template we abide by so that we don't have those overcuts. Much easier, much less time on the big cups. There's a stone cut on the lathe with the diamond cups. Gives you an example of how much we need to cut and grind, even with the lathe. But those diamond cups are hard at work. Eventually they get it. After the diamond cups are done, the cast iron cups go on. And then the abrasive is added. And the abrasive grinds away from coarse to finer to finer to finer till you get to pre-polish and polish. Yeah. But when they're wet, you can start to see the beauty of the stone.
80 grit.
And that was a boulder. There's the abrasive being discharged onto the stone as it rotates. That's carborundum. Diamond on the mower scale is a 10. Carborundum on the mower scale is a 9.5. Granite is like a 5.6 on the mower scale. Quartz is like a 6.7. Hardness being a 10, the hardest. There it is, finished. That's a gimbaled sphere. 17-inch diameter, quartz, on a machine-made, designed, gimbaled sphere. I love it. It works in every direction, just like a globe. That was the model. I found a globe at a, there it is. And there's some other things we're doing with the bandsaw. The wire saw is handy. Does other things. State of New Hampshire profiles, the white is quartz, of course. Sitting on a stone table. That's pretty much it here at Pawjer Construction and Earth Products, Goffstown, New Hampshire.
Well, Paul, that was pretty interesting. I think that people get a little bit of a feeling for what's involved here. Looks to me like it's a lot of heavy material handling from what I could see. And how do you move things around here in all this?
A lifelong belief in the mechanical advantage. So everything we do everything is heavy. Everything needs mechanical advantage with the chain falls and the hoists and the machines and the forklifts and everything gets picked up and put down again and again.
I see.
You know?
I noticed in the show that you had some hand tools there, and for next to one of the rough spheres there.
Yeah, when we started making the spheres, we were able to saw them down into an 18-sided, three-dimensional object. Well, that can't go on the machine as is. It had to be smoothed off. So templates, saws, hammer and chisels.
That sounds like a lot of work.
It was a lot of work, and we made 9 of them that way, from 17 inches to 24 inches, and it had to be a better way. It was just too difficult, too time-consuming.
So I noticed later on in the segment we just watched, you seem to have automated this system.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about how you transitioned from the hand tools to this.
Number 9 was the sphere that made me convinced that doing it by hand was wrong. When I shaped down the number 9 sphere to a rough round object and put it on the machine to turn it spherical, it took 5 hours to get it spherical. Then it took another 5 hours to get down to my overcuts, and that was the decisive factor. That it was unacceptable to, wear all those diamonds down for twice the amount of time that was necessary. Had to be an easier way to rough them. So that's when the lathe came in. Another necessity, formed to find an easier, more efficient way to rough them down. So the lathe came into effect. Now I don't have overcut problems. So the rough round balls can go on the sphere machine more efficiently. And it's a heck of a lot easier to sit there and do this.
Now, is this machinery you can just buy off the street, or how did you come across machinery like this?
It's always by necessity and design build. You have a process that you're doing that nobody else is doing, and you got to figure out how to make it work for me. And it's a culmination of a machine here and then a machine there, and you put them together, and before you know it, you have a specific machine to do a specific task.
So I understand then that you build your own machines to do this.
That's part of how I make my living. Is I can't afford to buy this equipment that you probably could have it custom made by a machinery building company, but you'd spend tens of thousands of dollars to do it, and I can't afford to do that on a whim, and everything I do is kind of on a whim, because I'm just a guy trying to make a living, out there. So I'm willing to put sweat equity into this process, and that's where the passion comes from. I have everything into it. I have sleepless nights and design build, and that's all part of the process, is making the equipment to do this work. It makes it, and when I talk to people about it, I try to explain to them that that's what I'm bringing to the table for them, is that passion. So when I'm on a job for them, that passion follows me, regardless of what I'm doing for work. Making spheres was something that I looked at as the pinnacle of granite work for me, and I wanted it as a challenge. And I'm happy to say that so far we've done a dozen of them, and so only 2 has been made on the lathe, the duplicating lathe. And so I'm happy with that, and many more to come. Now that I've been introduced to the Palermo mine and have access to quartz, which now you're making a stone sphere that people are interested in. There's something to see. It's not just a piece of granite. It's not just a rock on the ground that's turned into a sphere.
Right.
Quartz is totally different, as you can agree.
Yeah, you did talk a little bit about that earlier on, about where you get your materials and that you repurpose a lot of things. And now you're actually getting rough stone from a mine and a quarry type situation.
Like-minded people find each other,
Yes.
and mineralists and rock collectors are all a bunch of rock hounds, and they all find each other. And the club is a good means for that, because there's a lot of people who will be walking down the road and see a shiny rock on the ground and pick it up, and that's the beginning.
That's the beginning of it. That's
Just
how
like-
I started.
That's just how it is.
As a kid.
Yeah, and with the spheres, to me, it's the thing that challenges me with it is no matter how many times you look at it, you can only see half of it at a time, and
Sure.
it's kind of a funny thing. So I try to make them more appealing, and that's when I put the one that I've made so far in the gimbaled frame. So now it's kind of like a kinetic sculpture. So it's still a 300-pound sphere, but
Right.
mobile.
So talk about some of the other products that we see up on the backdrop behind us. I notice you have your sphere up there, and
Yep.
you have some, looks like outlines of New Hampshire.
Yeah. So over the travel, over time, with doing all this stone and granite work, always looking for the next product, the next thing to make it interesting and to keep it interesting. And I found a diamond wire bandsaw that needed reconstruction in order to get it viable. And that's what I did, and rebuilt it. And now I have the capability of duplicating or, bandsaw work, basically, except it's cut with a wire, same wire that's used on the big wire saw. And so now I take the profiles of the state of New Hampshire, because this is the granite state. People should be able to, find a piece of the state that looks like the state. And
That's
it's
a
all
great
done by
idea.
hand. It's not CNC duplicated machinery that you can buy at the store. This is something that a craftsman can make and can appreciate the imperfections of what we do. So over the years with the stonework, I've been trying to get people to understand that I try to perfect the imperfection, and it's okay for it not to be quite perfect because it's done by hand.
I see.
You can't make it perfect,
Right.
but a machine can.
Right.
And I think that takes a little bit away from it, in my opinion. But that's just me.
Well, Paul, that's all really interesting, and it's exciting. It's really gives people something to look forward to from the state, and from what I understand, that this is crafted by you, so there's a lot of work that goes into it. People got to realize the amount of time that must go into this and the value add from that. I want to thank you for coming today, talking to us,
Thanks for having me.
and we'd like to close off the show and thank Paul very much for coming today. And we'd like to just reiterate that we have our show in the end of August this year, and Paul will be displaying his products there if you want to come see them, and we hope you can all attend. Thank you.